Hello, hello, Lionsteel here. Hope you're all having a great day. We're here with a knife review today. And this is the Lionsteel ROK. ROK, it actually says it right there. I don't know why it says it right there, but it does. This is not your standard ROK. There is a standard one that is aluminum and I think pretty much M390 most of the time. I don't think there's any other options on there. It's an aluminum integral. This, however, is a titanium integral with Chad Nichols Damascus blade. Quite a bit more fancy, and as you can see, it's got this beautiful I1. This is what, I'll be honest with you, this is what sold me on this knife. That texturing, light, milling, polished ano, it is gorgeous. This knife has its issues, but man, is it gorgeous. It is a flipper, though the flipper can be removed, so you have to two-hand open it. Laws in Europe and stuff. Some places can't have locking knives, but some places can't have, one-handed opening knives. So you can unscrew the flipper from there, and then you have to pop it open like that. It's on bearings. It's frame lock. In titanium. As I said. We'll get into more after we're done with the specs, but let's start on with the specs, shall we? You've got just over 3¼ inches of blade, just slightly over. You got slightly over 7¾ So 3¼ 7¾ the ratios aren't terrible. They're not great, but the handle is what, 4½-ish? Yeah, 4½. Okay. Let us do our standard comparisons for size. The full-size knife being the Civivi Conspirator, and the, for some reason not opening today, the Civivi Elementum for the smaller knife. Comparisons, these are both budget options and pretty common ones, pretty decently known ones. I mean, this is as full size, regular size knife as you can get. It's 3½ and like I think 4½. Is that 4½? A little over 4½. But you basically got 3½ blade, 4½-ish of handle, which is very common for your average folding knife. And then a lot of people know the Elementum, so that's why they're the size comparisons. Don't know why I said that all up, but it did. As you can see, this knife falls in between them, but it's closer to the Conspirator. It's a full-size knife. It is also a kind of chunky knife when it's closed. As you can see, it is reasonably tall. It is a bit taller than the Conspirator. It does stick out a bit there. And the flipper tab is also pretty tall. So it's not as the most compact things in the world, but at the same time... Okay, flipper tab included, it reaches the height of a PM2. But other than that, no. It is also pretty thick. This is a reasonably thick knife. It's not too bad, but it's a little bit thicker than the Conspirator, which, I mean, could be a good thing if you want to look at it, because it means this is pretty solid amount of titanium here. Let's check just how much right now. Okay. Calipers, as always, thank you for your service. 567 thousandths. Yeah, it's reasonably thick, but it's not terribly thick. But the amount of titanium, yeah, 167 thousandths of titanium. That's a decent chunk I mean, well, the whole thing's an integral, so it was one solid chunk of titanium, but they left us with a good amount of meat inside there. 177 thousandths, 178 thousandths on the blade stock. It is a thick knife. It is chunky. That's kind of one of the downfalls, and this is going to be ridiculous. Behind the edge is... No, you're thicker than that. Stop lying to me. About 25 thousandths behind the edge, just to start off with. Yeah. I don't know what it is with Italian knife companies, but they like their chunky geometry. Chunky blade stock, chunky geometry. This is not the slicer of the year. Not at all. It is quite good. Got quite a good edge on there. I will admit, it is surprisingly bitey. But geometry-wise, you're not winning. It could definitely be better. It could definitely be thinner. Just take some meat off of that. Even if you wanted to sleeve the heavy-duty blade stock, you could still get this thing down to like 17 or 17 thousandths behind the edge and just have a much better performing knife. Just make it more of an intense flat grind. There's a swedge here, and in the swedge it says Lionsteel Italy. I'm personally not a huge fan when they have a beautiful Damascus blade and then you put stuff on it. Like, that's not my taste, but if you were to look at the plain one and that's where it said Lionsteel, if it said there or there, I'd be fine with that. That wouldn't be the bannering's not too bad, but I just kind of wish it wasn't there on the, the beautiful Chad Nichols Damascus. And being Chad Nichols Damascus, you can be pretty much assured that it is of reasonably decent quality. They do use, not Lionsteel, but Nichols does do good Damascus most of the time as far as I know. The final comparison being the AA batteries, and you don't quite have two AA batteries of grip here, though you can get around the edge a little bit. It still fits my hand. Just barely. But even if you were a little bit bigger, like if I cram myself down and go slightly around the edge, yeah, you can still get a bigger hand on there. So it's accommodating is what it is. Hardware is... Hold on, I've got to get my T8 out. Though, is this T8? It is T8. There is one T8 screw there. The lock bar insert is T6. Everything else is T8, which is actually quite nice. I will give them that much. European companies definitely like their T6s, and they were very subdued. I mean, you really only ever have to take this apart to get the blade out and everything like that, because the handle can't come apart. And you probably don't want to mess with this. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's one T8. I like that. I can appreciate that. Weight of the ROK here. And it's called a ROK, so I don't expect this to be light. It's not that heavy. It honestly feels heavier. Maybe it's because it's got the thick blade stock and it's just kind of like a thick feeling knife. But it's just shy, just basically at 6 ounces. Which is not bad. Especially considering it's a reasonably tall knife. I think we are done with our specs here, so let's just start talking about this thing. First thing, blade. I like the blade. I like the Damascus. It's definitely attractive. It's definitely well done. It has good edge on it. Is it thick as hell? Yeah, but that's not why I bought it. This one's just because I really, really liked it. It also has a plunge grind that comes really close to hitting that edge. It's like right there, right behind it. So you're definitely going to have to deal with that. But the stop pin is internal, which is very nice. It is right there. You can kind of see it. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, cutting edge oil is not at all a problem here. And you can even remove the flipper tabs if you're worried about hitting it or something like that when you're yeah, it's pretty accommodating. I'll give them that much. The removable flipper tab is okay. It's an interesting, good idea. I just don't love the shape of this flipper tab. I think it stands a little taller than it really necessarily has to, and like, I don't know, just give me a little bit of angle so it's not quite as weird to interact with. It just feels kind of out of place with the flow of the rest of the knife. That's all from the blade. It's a frame lock, and it's running on bearings, and yeah, it's a pretty straightforward blade. I almost said the crown is spined. The spine is crowned, like almost every knife coming out of Italy. There is some jimping. It is pretty much useless. Big, wide, rounded jimping, and crown jimping just does nothing. It is tight in the pivot. I will admit that. I've noticed that seems to be the case with a lot of Italian-made knives. They seem to like, again with the T6s, but they like their T6s, they like their tighter stuff, they like their thicker geometry. Why? Don't know. It's also got a detent ramp that is, let's see, you're on the detent ramp, you're off the detent ramp. So you can't just let it drop and then shake it from there, because the detent ramp and this tight action make you have to go over that. After that, it's still not really a shake-shut knife. It's definitely a more deliberate sort of closing. That may, in part, be due to the fact that it is meant to be opened and closed two-handed. They may have done this on purpose, so I'm giving them a pass there. And then we come to the handle, and that's really juxtaposed next to that beautiful Damascus is an even more beautiful handle. It is titanium, it is integral, it is milled, it is polished, light reflective blue. It's definitely the selling point here, and it's what made me see it and go, yeah, immediately, yes. Yes, I know it's not going to be exactly like I like. I know it's probably not going to be the kind of knife I like, being that I knew it was going to be thick and stuff like that, but ooh, that is just... This is a piece that I just have because I really like it. I think they really have something that they could be doing here if they were to implement some of this texturing and polishing and stuff on some other knives. Yes. Of course, do a better geometry and stuff like that, too, but... There is a lock bar stabilizer and secondary lock on this knife, a lock bar lock. And I really don't particularly like that because of where it sits. When I go to disengage this thing, my finger tends to rub up against it, and if it rubs it this way, the lock bar locks. So I kind of don't like that at all, because it's surprisingly easy just to, when you flip it around in your hand, just to go like this, and oh no, it's locked itself out now. There's also a little bit of detent, lock stick. You can kind of hear it. It's not too bad most of the time. Occasionally you'll get it grepping a little bit, but it's just a little tiny pop. It's not enough that it would be like, oh my god, that's terrible, especially considering it's, you know, Damascus, and in my experience, sometimes Damascus can have a little bit of lock stick. Damasteel is usually a bit better, but Damascus knives, I don't know if maybe there's a little bit of texture in there or something like that, or the way it interacts with the lock bar. They can have a tiny bit of lock stick, and this one does. It's not that big of a deal. It's got a big lock bar insert, so it's not a problem. The disengagement, you have a ton of room. It's great. Space is excellent. I mean, you can't get it to the point where it's past the ramp because of the flipper tab, but again, who cares? It's tight, so most of the time I'm just doing this. And it's got a good detent. I gotta give it that. Very snappy, very good detent. Quite actually strong almost. I hope that the regular variants of this doesn't have the little bit of lock stick, but eh. The pivot says ROK for some reason. Don't know why that is. It's definitely got like a sort of modern aesthetic, but it also crosses into that sort of like futuristic where everything has its little labels, like, or its little notations. Like you kind of expect it to say, press here or something like that, where it's got that futuristic, everything's got directions on it or something. It kind of breaches that, just in my mind. I don't know, I may be talking out my rear end, because, I mean, who knows? Hey, you can't see me, I may be talking out my rear end all the time. So, that may just be me, but it is what it is. Lock bar cutout is on both the inside and the outside, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, don't know why they did that. Doesn't matter, doesn't affect anything. You've got the spine, which is also textured, and that's where your connection points are. Of course, it's solid titanium. But I'm kind of glad they left it a little bit more pass-through access, because integrals can get a bit dirty and gunky inside because, you know, they're closed off normally. I don't mind seeing one with the occasional opening in there. There's no milling, of course, because that would be really, really hard to do on an integral. Ergos are quite good, honestly. Everything, because of the polish, is so soft and so comfortable and so nice to engage with. The Ergos are pretty wonderful. They're pretty neutral, but they're great. They really are. They did a good job with that design element. And now, the final interesting thing. Like, that's kind of what this knife is. It's just a bunch of interesting things put together. And that's what made it interesting for me to buy. That's what got me. Is this pocket clip. As you can see, it is the same Damascus as the blade. But it also sits flush. That's because this has a button here. That makes it pop out on a spring. And weirdly enough, there's just enough. You might look at it and say, "Hey, there's doesn't have like a ramp or anything like that." But let's get this closed so I'm not cut my hand off. Weirdly enough, when it's all the way out, there's just enough flex there to give you enough rise that it actually works surprisingly well in all but like really thicker pants. I wouldn't necessarily put this in super thick jeans. But it's got just enough flex where it can get a grip on most things. Maybe not all the way deep, depending on your thickness, but it actually works pretty nice, and it sits flush, and it's really nice, and I love that they made it out of the freaking Damascus of the blade. That, yes, just fun. That's what this is. This is a fun knife. It's not the greatest knife, like the standard ones in the M390 and the aluminum aren't a knife that I'm jumping up to get at, because, I mean, I think for what they are, they're probably decently priced, coming in around probably, what, 300 and something? You know, I haven't looked up the price for them. I know on their website it's like 284 euros. But bear with me. I'm going to check real fast. Let's check Blade HQ. Let's check Blade HQ. They're probably on there. We'll just see what the standard price for this thing is. $389. Okay, so it's even it was like 382 euros. So yeah, 389. That was MSRP, I guess. So yeah, 389. That's not terrible for a thick piece of M390 aluminum. Yes, it's aluminum, but it's an integral with probably a titanium pocket clip. It's not terrible for as much as you're getting, but at that price, with the plain, very basic version of this knife, it's, you know, a user, and I don't think this knife is a great user. So I can't suggest it that way. It's not recommendable that way, but as a higher-end knife in Damascus, coming in to something at like $529 for Chad Nichols Damascus and this big, thick, integral titanium handle with tons of detail and tons of elements and execution on it. If you're looking for a knife that you're going to just say, I just love the look of this knife. They knocked it out of the park on some of the details. It's just a really fun knife. It is centered. It's centered with the little notch in there. There's like a little notch in the back. Though I think the notch is a tiny bit off center. So I think like that would actually be centered, but it is just a hair off maybe. It doesn't look centered because of the way it all comes together, unfortunately. It definitely looks like it's favoring this side, but I really don't think it is. I think it's just the way it's all been come together. Yeah, like that would be centered right there. And it still looks like it's off. So yeah, that's a slight optical illusion. The handle might be, machined at a slight angle or something like that, and they judged it based on that. Based on their own notch, it is centered. There's no play. I have taken it apart. I have oiled it. It was even tighter when I first got it. It definitely has its issues, and like I said, it's not the knife that I want to carry all the time. But as a unique, interesting piece, as someone who is like, an enthusiast and a collector, and will just sort of get a knife that's really, really cool and doing a bunch of stuff, this one definitely is doing it. And at $529, like that's pretty good for a titanium integral with Damascus on it. I mean, you're barely going to find them at like $450 is typically where your integral start, and this thing is definitely doing a bit more than that. And executing this mechanism on an integral, I imagine, is a little bit of a pain in the butt, personally. But see right there, I just partially locked myself out for a second because I hit the thing. The lock bar lock, I guess you call it. So there's definitely some flaws to the design. That doesn't need to be there. Change up the thickness. If the tightness isn't there on purpose to reinforce when it's just a two-handed knife, when you have to remove this, it could be smoother and not quite as tight. But I have a sinking suspicion that it is there for partially that reason, so you have to sort of be more deliberate with it when you've got the lulls in Europe and don't have that flipper tab on there. So, again, pass on that. So, yeah, I'm not going to say this is a recommendable knife at the base price or the base model, especially if they do have the lock stick issues and other things like that. But as a curiosity piece, as a piece of just really interesting high-end execution in certain ways, this is pretty cool. So I'm going to put it in my high-end recommended things because like this variant is about the only one that I can really say. Oh. Hold on one second. That's not $249, it's $219. The basic black aluminum and M390 variants are these. Most of them are $249s, but there is a $219 version. I don't know why. Oh, $389. $389 is the titanium integral one. The aluminum one is $219 to $229, depending on. Well, there's also $249 in red for some reason. I don't know why that one's that one, but it looks like they vary between $219 and about $250. I guess if you need like some really chunky hard use knife, it might be interesting to have. It's still got its flaws, and it's still got its execution hiccups, clearly, but if you want to go for the premium version just because I mean, yes, just yes. That's what this is. This is just a showcase of interesting things that they can do. I'd say that the premium version is more interesting, even though it's probably, you might get a little bit of weirdness with it. Yeah, you see, looking at it like that, doesn't look like it's all that off-center now, does it? It's weird. There's an optical illusion going on there. I'm not sure if it's the grind or something like that, but... So, barring the lock stick and the weird action and the completely needless lock bar secondary lock, they got a really cool knife here that I'd like them to see them do some iterations on. Thinner geometries and just some different stuff. But as it stands, this version is something that I like just because it's really, really attractive. To me. That's subjective, of course. I'm rambling. I'm going to call it here, but I just enjoy playing with this knife, I'll be honest with you. Even if it has its little weirdness and hiccups. This is an enthusiast knife all the way. And that's it. So that's the Lionsteel ROK Integral. I don't necessarily recommend the cheaper version, so I'm not going to link it or anything like that. But there is a high-end version out there that is cool. That's pretty much what this review's all come down to. 26 minutes of, this is a cool knife, look at it! Yeah, okay. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.